Hello and welcome back to the For the Property Investor podcast, and we're here with the weekly news segment brought to us, well, the news is at least, by Nick Bendall. And welcome back, Nick.
Thank you for having me, Owen. Always great to join you.
And yes, and we very much appreciate you bringing us the news. And I'm here on location, undisclosed location. Yes, always great to catch up with you on a Monday morning. So how's your week been this week,
My
Nick?
week has been really good. I had a really enjoyable week. One of those weeks where you just seem to get a lot of things done, and you meet some good people and everything flows well. And in terms of the business, Owen, for those who don't know, I'm the owner of Hunter and Scribe, which is a copywriting agency that writes content for property and finance professionals. And over the past week, we signed 3 new clients: a mortgage broker, a commercial finance broker, and a buyer's agent.
Fantastic. Wow. They're all my favourite type of people.
Exactly. I thought you'd be pleased.
And good to hear. It's still busy, and it's a beautiful May day at the moment, so it's feeling almost summerish. So it's a little confusing. We're heading into winter, but we've got gorgeous sunshine today. Yeah, last week for us with property management has been fairly quiet one. We're busy with lots of new things happening, but we're getting ready for end of month, which is at the end of this week. So yeah, lots of things getting prepared there, and we have some big news coming in the coming months. So we're working behind the scenes on that. So stay tuned.
Okay, I'm very much looking forward to hearing that when you're ready to announce it.
Cool. So, Nick, what's in the news this week?
Well, as always, Owen, we've got 3 stories to chat about. The first one, why rents have been rising so rapidly. The main reason for the sharp increase in rent since the pandemic has been the shortage of rental accommodation, not because investors have been passing on interest rate rises to tenants, according to Reserve Bank Assistant Governor Sarah Hunter. She said, quote, "Growth in demand for new dwellings slowed rapidly in 2020 before rebounding strongly. Supply, as measured by dwelling completions, has been much less volatile and has trended down in recent years. Overall, then, growth in demand is currently running well ahead of supply." She added, "At first glance, it does appear that there could be a positive relationship between interest rates and market rents. The two often move together. However, our preliminary analysis suggests that market conditions captured via the vacancy rate explain most of the movement in market rents, and there is little to no evidence of direct pass-through to rents from higher interest costs in the short term." Owen, are you surprised that the main reason rents have been rising so rapidly is because of a shortage of supply and not because landlords are greedy and evil?
Oh, you couldn't help yourself but start to giggle there at the end, could you, Nick? Because yes, I think we haven't missed an episode where we haven't spoken about supply being the number one issue causing rents to go up as much as they have. And I was glad the Reserve Bank governor was to be able to cover off that seeming correlation between interest rates rising and rents rising. But it is a coincidence because it's when rates are rising, you're generally seeing a market where there is a shortage of supply, and because of over demand, and the market does force rents to go up. So that's the main reason. But yes, am I surprised? Hell no, of course not. It's like the biggest issue. It is the pandemic of our society at the moment, and I wish the governments treated it as seriously as they did as the as the health pandemic that we had a few years ago, because more serious action does need to be taken to be able to fix this issue, both in the short and long term, but they just keep on kicking the can down the road.
So following on from that, what do we need to do if we do want to improve rental affordability?
Well, number one thing is supply, but that's not that doesn't get fixed quickly. There's several factors, and there's a lot of tax incentives that can be done to be able to try and fix the issue both short term and long term. And we could talk for an hour on that. So I don't know, but be able to pick one thing that the government could do is, from a tax incentive point of view, is to be able to make it cheaper to build new properties. So it's taking off some of those taxes off developers, whether it be on a federal level with GST that they need to pay. There's state taxes as well as local government taxes. So all levels of government have got their hand in the kitty when it comes to brand new properties being built, and that adds to the price of these properties. So that can at least start to bring down that cost. But that's only once they can start building. The other thing that they can do is start cutting this red tape and getting properties approved and financed. So the government could provide some finance backing to a lot of these developers. They'll have to go through a lot of the same due diligence, but a lot of banks aren't funding developers because a lot of them are going broke.
And I know you touched on it a moment ago, Owen, but what do you think of the RBA's finding that there is little to no evidence of direct pass-through to rents from higher interest costs in the short term? Did that surprise you at all?
No, not at all. And I can understand why a lot of people see a correlation between the two. And because they generally do happen at the same time, but not always. But it's directly in relation to a lack of supply. And so if we put interest rates out of the picture at the moment, and we can look at the fact that there is high demand and a lack of supply. And we can even look at the what happened during those first year of COVID to be able to give that example. We had in the inner cities, especially in Sydney, which we witnessed, there was a exodus of people outside of this, getting out of the city and moving out to the suburbs and even the regions. And so what we saw was a drop in rents by about 30%, and in places like Surrey Hills and Waterloo, units were taking up to 6 months to lease with a 30% drop in the value of rents. So that was directly correlated by a lack of demand and an oversupply at that time for the level of demand. So that's a perfect example. And then if we look at the exact same timing of the market in the suburbs and the regions, we had very high demand and a lack of supply to meet that demand. So we had rents skyrocketing. So it was really like this 2-horse race, and one horse was badly limping and lame. But then, of course, once things opened up in terms of the economy and people going back to work, then we saw the complete flip of that, and units in the inner city going up by 50%, if not more. And it was, and you had multiple tens or 20 or 30 applications on each property. So that's just an example of how that supply and demand works, if anyone's unaware of how it works, and how it's regardless of what interest rates are doing, how market conditions can affect rents and how they work.
Great analysis as always, Owen. Let's
Thank
move
you.
on to a different issue for our second story.
Okay.
Australians leaving the workforce age 64.8 years. Not only are Australians working longer than before, but a worryingly large share of retirees are relying on the pension for their income, according to the latest data on retirement from the Australian Bureau of Statistics. The age at which Australians retire has been steadily increasing, rising from an average of 54.4 years in 2000 to 64.8 years in 2022. Part of the explanation for that big shift is likely to be that people are now living longer and staying healthier for longer, allowing them to work for longer. But it's also possible that some people are being forced to stay in the workforce for longer than they'd like due to inadequate retirement savings. For people who had retired, the most common source of income was a government pension or allowance, which applied to 43.3% of retirees, while the second most common was superannuation, an annuity, or a private pension, which applied to 26.8%. Owen, one possible explanation for why people have been retiring later, as we discussed, is because people are now living longer and staying healthier for longer, allowing them to work for longer. Just wondering, does that sound like a plausible theory to you?
Yes, absolutely. There's people want to get meaning out of their life, and they don't necessarily want to retire if they're feeling healthy and feeling like they can provide value to society. Then, if they want to work, then they should be allowed to, and should definitely go out there and provide value and get
And
paid
what
for it.
about and what about that other possible explanation we raise, which is that another reason people are retiring later is because some people are being forced to stay in the workforce for longer than they'd like due to inadequate retirement savings. Does that sound like it could be a plausible theory as well?
Absolutely, it's yeah, both reasons are very plausible, and it's for a lot of people it might be a bit of both. They might want to be able to keep working, to be able to keep themselves busy and give them a purpose in life. But they probably need that extra cash or would like that extra income to be able to provide themselves with a better quality of living that the age pension alone would not provide. I think that's a good thing.
Speaking of the pension, a single person on the pension is able to get a maximum of $29,000 per year. So how concerning is it that 43.3% of retirees rely on the pension as their most common source of income?
Yes, it is concerning, and we are in a transition phase within our population at the moment, as we've got more of an aging population, and that current population that's in heading into retirement now started late to saving for through their superannuation, and it's something that the next generations coming along will certainly have more in their superannuation or private investment to be able to pass along, but also that the current generation has is holding a lot of wealth at the same time, and maybe there could be other ways to look at how they could use their current wealth to be able to be more self-funded in retirement.
Self-funding is interesting because I made a decision about a decade ago that I wanted to be self-funded. I didn't want to rely on the pension, which, as we say, is 29 grand a year maximum if you're single. I wish I'd started earlier, but a decade ago, I started investing in property. I wanted to build wealth. Of course, property investing is not the only way to build wealth.
Mm.
It's not the right thing for everyone, but it's been good to me. And I wish I'd started early, but I guess a lot of people do choose property investing as the way they're going to become self-funded.
Yes, it is, and that's what we're all about with our business, with helping property investors manage their investments, and it's a good way to be able to build wealth. But as you said, it's not the only way. But a lot of people hold wealth, a lot of wealth within their owner-occupied property as well.
Hmm.
And a lot of that can be untapped during retirement. They can be living in a property that they've lived in for a long time. That's probably too big for them, and they don't have the income to maintain the upkeep of a much larger property. So, but due to the tax system and the pension system, there are a lot more incentives for them to stay in that property. So that's one thing that I think politicians are a bit gun shy of approaching, to be able to help a lot of people in that current generation of heading into retirement, to be able to access to be a bit more self-funded.
Well, given that you're still in your mid-20s, Owen, you've got many years until retirement.
Yes, these grey hairs have hit me a bit early. Yeah.
And our final story today, CBA unveils a non-broker home loan. Commonwealth Bank has unveiled a digital home loan called Unloan, which includes a loyalty discount that grows by 0.01 percentage point every year. The advisor has reported that Unloan will compete with mortgage brokers because it will be available only directly, not through brokers. Currently, Unloan is available only to external refinances. In the coming months, CBA says Unloan will become available to new borrowers. Owen, what do you think of CBA's decision to exclude mortgage brokers from offering Unloan?
Yes, and I believe it's a purely online product as well, so it's
Hmm.
not even something that branches can offer. And I'm not surprised that CBA is doing whatever it can to try and diminish and take away any value they can from the broker channel. The current CEO during the Banking Royal Commission tried to blame everything that the banks did on brokers. So he was the one trying to undermine and pressuring the commissioner at the time. He did a good job at convincing the commissioner to blame it all on the brokers. Meanwhile, brokers have, in that period of time, almost doubled their market share. So they must be providing some value to the borrower. But so am I surprised? No, CBA will do anything, and that CEO will do anything he wants to be able to undermine brokers. They don't like the fact that they're not holding the power anymore, and that they can't influence borrowers and the marketplace to be able to grab as much profit as they can. So it's a fairly limited product from what I've seen, and you have to be a pretty vanilla deal to be able to get it across the line. So if you need to have some value added service, then like most people do, then your best bet is to talk to a broker.
I mean, that's the thing. Now, I know both of us are biased in favor of brokers. Okay, fair enough. But I, I really dislike what CBA is doing, because the best thing for people to do is to speak to a broker, and they are then going to recommend the loan that is best suited to you. And if that's CBA, well, they'll recommend CBA. But if it's one of the other lenders on their panel, they'll recommend that. So it's in the borrower's interest, it's in the interest of consumers to go to brokers. So what annoys me is that CBA is trying to steer consumers to do something that is not in their interests.
Yes, and as a result of the Royal Commission, it became legislated that brokers have to, by law, have best interest duty to their clients. But for some reason, banks don't.
Yeah.
Banks can sell you the most expensive product they want. They have no duty to say that there's another bank down the road that's got a better product and better pricing for you. So the banks can do whatever they want, and whereas brokers have to, by law, have your best interests at heart. So, I mean, what's that say about it? The Royal Commission was total waste of time, and it almost put our country into recession as a result. So it's yeah, the CBA CEO has a lot to answer for.
Do you expect other lenders to follow CBA's lead in excluding brokers from certain home loan products?
I'm not surprised if they try, but I think they're all looking back and well, sitting back, looking at what CBA is doing. And yeah, this isn't the first time they've tried to put out a product like this with an online service. Even NAB has had one as well. But yeah, they can only suit a particular type of client, and that really doesn't need any help. And all the bank's trying to do is to be able to capture that market, and without having to pay a broker for their time and service.
And what do you think of this automatic loyalty discount that Unloan is going to offer? And this loyalty discount grows by 0.01 percentage point every year. Is this something valuable, or is it just a bit of a gimmick?
Um, yeah, uh, it's probably more of a gimmick. I mean, it's 0.01% per year. If it was 0.025 or maybe 0.05, it's that would be worthwhile, because most of the time, every 3 to 4 years, you can refinance to get a better deal anyway. And because markets change and conditions change anyway. So it's probably more of a gimmick. They think, oh, people will think that at least they're getting some kind of a discount automatically, which is nice. But yeah, it's good marketing. Yeah.
Well, three very different stories today.
Yes.
A lot to discuss, and thanks for your great insights.
And thank you again for bringing the news to us, Nick. And look forward to seeing what's in the news next week. And yeah, looking forward to it. Have a great week.
You too. Always great to chat.
All right. Thanks, Nick.